Welcome back to the deep dive. You know that feeling, right? You open up a huge spreadsheet, maybe it's years of market data, maybe a genome scan, and you just assume the structure, the patterns, all the hidden rules. They're just sitting there, waiting to be found, like an archaeological dig. It's the classical assumption, and it's a comforting one, frankly, that the structure is latent, it's immutable, and it's just waiting for us to look back and find it.
Right. We think having all the static data means having all the information. But what if that's just wrong?
What if it is? What if the informational structure only emerges? What if it's actually created by the act of discovering it? What if you can only see it when you look in real time, respecting that forward arrow of time? And that radical idea is the subject of our deep dive today. It all centers on this powerful concept from our source material, the SKA Learning Duality.
SKA, which stands for Structured Knowledge Accumulation. So our mission today is to dig into this framework and its core claim that the true information structure of complex systems, finance, genetics, you name it, emerges only through this real-time, forward-only learning. And we'll see why looking back, doing what we call batch analysis, just can't capture that same reality. It fundamentally challenges how we do science.
How so?
Well, classical analysis treats structure as if it exists in a complete dataset, outside of time. SKA says no. Structure is emergent. It's inseparable from the process of accumulation, forcing your learning to align with the causal, irreversible flow of time.
Okay, let's unpack that. We need to understand what SKA actually is beyond the acronym and why it draws such a hard line against our standard methods. Fundamentally, SKA is a robust framework. It mathematically formalizes learning as a strictly forward-only process, and it's driven by reducing uncertainty, what we call entropy-driven adaptation. So it's not just about collecting data.
No, it's about accumulating knowledge. Knowledge that is structured by time.
And at the mathematical heart of this is SKA's unique take on uncertainty, this path-dependent entropy.
That's the engine right there. This SKA entropy isn't a static property of a whole dataset. It's a measure of the system's trajectory as it unfolds. Crucially, it's defined by a path integral over time.
Okay, hold on. Path integral? Lagrangian?
Okay, let's pause on the jargon for a moment.
Fair enough. For our listeners, what does defining entropy based on a path actually mean? And what is this Lagrangian of uncertainty flow?
Right, critical question. Shannon entropy, the one we usually talk about, measures the randomness in a fixed set of data.
Okay?
But SKA entropy measures the potential for surprise at any given moment. Defining it by the path means your uncertainty measure depends entirely on the sequence of events that got you to that point.
So the history matters a lot. It's not just the current state, but how you got there.
Precisely. And that flow, the Lagrangian, is quantifying the rate at which your model is failing or succeeding as new information comes in. It's tracking the instantaneous change in your knowledge.
Like a cost of being surprised.
Yes, a perfect way to put it. If the Lagrangian is high, you're learning fast because you were wrong. If it's low, your knowledge is stable. It's the flow of uncertainty away from you as you learn.
That really sharpens the distinction. So if Shannon entropy is about the final stats, how many heads and tails after 1,000 flips, SKA entropy is about the dynamic struggle, the predictive failures during those flips.
Exactly, and that's why trying to calculate SKA entropy on a completed dataset is, well, it's incoherent.
SKA entropy is epistemic. It measures uncertainty before you have the knowledge.
The moment you have the batch dataset, all the outcomes are known, all of the surprises have happened.
The uncertainty it was designed to measure has already collapsed. You can't measure the risk of a flood when you're standing on dry land. So if you try to run SKA on historical data, you're basically asking about uncertainty in a world where everything is certain. You're measuring the dust, not the wind that carried it.
Fantastic analogy. Shannon entropy is perfectly valid for the dust, the residue, but STKA needs the wind, the ongoing process of prediction and correction.
And this is where it really challenges everything. Let's state the duality explicitly. The informational structure of a complex system emerges only through this real-time STKA learning. Batch analysis can't see the same thing.
It can't. So what structures are we talking about? What does batch analysis completely obliterate?
The differences are profound, and it all comes down to averaging. Standard batch analysis, by summing up everything across the entire history, smooths away all the vital temporal dynamics. The entropy you get is often flat, featureless. And what does the real-time STKA profile look like?
It's alive, it's vibrant. In real time, the entropy profile is dynamic, structured, and critically, it aligns with hidden regimes in the data.
For example,
Take the stock market. Batch analysis might see high volatility during major market events. STKA would see a precise sequence of regime shifts, the market structure fundamentally changing on specific dates. It reveals the boundaries as they were being crossed.
So it's detecting the actual pivot points that standard deviation just mushes into one big number.
Exactly. Regime boundaries pop out naturally in STKA because the system is constantly adapting to them. That causes sharp spikes or drops in the uncertainty flow. Batch analysis almost never sees them.
what about predictability?
Those brief windows where a complex system simplifies, they emerge clearly in the STKA profile, but are completely lost in the global average. You see structure not as a fixed thing, but as a temporary state.
And anomalies, those high-impact, unexpected events,
In STKA, they create an immediate, sharp, unmissable spike in the uncertainty flow. In batch analysis, the anomaly is just one more data point that gets absorbed into the noise. Retrospect acts like a filter for novelty.
and the source material says this applies everywhere, not just finance.
Oh, absolutely. Think about genomics. Normally, you have to label functional regions of a genome first. STKA, processing the sequence in real time, can reveal information valleys and peak transitions at those functional regions without any labels, simply because the information changes there. So the structure isn't an objective map we uncover, it's a consequence of the journey we take through the data.
That's it. Okay, so let's step back. If having all the data after the fact is not enough, we have to ask why.
Why is it insufficient?
Because of the foundation of reality itself. The real world is space-time. Events flow. Causality moves forward. Retrospective analysis treats all data points as if they're simultaneously available, like they exist in some timeless, static space.
It's like freezing a river and trying to understand flow by studying the ice block.
Precisely. Information, in the STKA sense, emerges through temporal sequence. Knowledge accumulation is a causal process. Batch analysis studies the ice block, the static residue. STKA studies the flow itself.
And that gets us into philosophical territory. The source material links this to John Archibald Wheeler's It from Bit.
Yes, Wheeler's idea was that reality, the it, arises from acts of observation, the bit. STKA's view really mirrors this. The structure isn't just passively there. The act of sequential forward-only learning is the measurement that creates the observable structure.
So if the system is complex, the structure is more like an ongoing performance than a fixed script.
A great way to put it. And there's an instructive analogy to Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
That seems like a bold analogy.
It's a very instructive one. Think of classical batch analysis as reasoning inside a closed formal system. The complete dataset is your system. Gödel showed that in any such system, there are truths that are undecidable, structures you can't access from within.
And how does the analogy work for STKA?
Not by being a better system, but by refusing to be a static one. The sequential learning process is like stepping outside the fixed system. The structures STKA finds, regimes, boundaries, are the truths that are undecidable when the system is viewed as closed, but become obvious when you let the system evolve through time.
Exactly. The dynamic process gives you a vantage point that the static aggregate cannot offer. So if STKA is this instrument that reveals structures we couldn't see otherwise, what does this mean for science and engineering? How does this change the research paradigm?
It changes everything. Classical science is about extracting fixed laws from fully observed things. STKA presents a paradigm where structure is recognized as emergent, dynamic, and co-created by our interaction with it. We're shifting from discovery as extraction to discovery as dynamic observation.
Can you give me a concrete example? If I'm a physicist, how does this help me find something new?
Okay, take phase transitions. A classical physicist might model a known transition with equations they already have.
Right. They know what to look for.
An SKA-driven system, looking at raw data from a system nearing a critical point, wouldn't need those equations. It would autonomously observe a sudden critical divergence in the uncertainty flow right when the transition begins. It discovers the rules of motion dynamically.
That is a powerful tool, especially in finance, where the rules constantly change. If you can detect a market transition as it starts, your ability to manage risk is fundamentally different than relying on last month's average. It's about detecting micro-regimes that global averaging completely hides. That's the practical power.
So, for you, the listener working in a data-rich world, this material invites you to recalibrate your whole approach. What are the practical takeaways?
First, stop defaulting to post-hoc analysis. Start testing data streams live. Even when reprocessing old data, force your algorithm to see it sequentially, as it actually happened.
Okay.
Second, learn to observe the entropy profile itself. The profile of uncertainty is the signal, not noise. Use those changes in the Lagrangian to spot regime changes your traditional models miss.
So the goal is to stop thinking of data processing as just calculation and start treating it as an ongoing dynamic experiment.
Precisely. Build systems that can explore hypotheses in real time, unifying theory with the practical sensing of dynamic change.
This has been a comprehensive deep dive. Let's summarize the heart of it. SKA forces us to see that informational structure isn't fixed, it's emergent. Knowledge accumulation is an irreversible journey that must respect the forward-only causal nature of the world.
And by focusing on this path-dependent entropy, discovery becomes not the revealing of fixed truths, but the co-creation of structure that only happens when our observation aligns with the flow of time.
Which leaves us with the final thought. If the genuine informational structure of a system, financial, biological, whatever, only exists in the doing, not the having done, what does that imply about our massive reliance on historical data sets for training models?
Are we training our systems to understand the rules of the ice block rather than the dynamics of the river?
You might not be looking at the structure you think you are.
Something to ponder until our next deep dive.